Hi there, welcome to the More Sibyl podcast. This is a podcast for Blacks, Asians, and those who love them. I am Mo, and I am your host, ready to spark your curiosity as I take you on this adventurous ride of exploring cultures through the stories of my guests from all over the world. On this show, we get really personal, discussing salient issues that are relevant to our contemporary age and also building community around them. As our guests exercise courage and vulnerability in sharing their life's experiences, we hope that in turn you are inspired by them and that you get the courage needed to set your own stories free. Enjoy the ride, and thank you so much for listening. Well, everyone, welcome back to the show. My name is Mo, and my guest today, we will operate under a little bit of anonymity just because of some of the things we're going to be talking about, which you will get to soon find out. But first, just to define the parameters of our conversation, she is from Nigeria, and she's currently based in Canada, and I'm going to call her B. I've known B for a while, and she's also my friend's sister. And she's also a very ardent supporter of the show. As a matter of fact, during our last singles panel, she had sent me a message. She attended the panel even though she's not single, but she, it was about relationships, and she always had this. One thing I like about her is just her insight to a lot of questions about, marriage, relationships. So during the chat comments, she had said something about parents, also being some causes of, marital issues, which, I wanted to explore further. So we chatted privately, and I was like, okay, this is a story we have to have on the podcast. So that's that. So first, let's talk. We can't say tell us a little bit about yourself, but you've been married for how long? And welcome to the show, B. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I've been married for 7 years. We were 7 years in July, so yeah, in June. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. It's June when? Because ours is June 18th.
Oh, ours is June 14th. 2014.
Congratulations, 7 years. I was like,
oh yeah,
that's like a gazillion years in Hollywood standard. So, just a little bit of background story to help the listeners catch up is you met your husband in college. You were friends, just, belong to the same circle of friends. I think the fellowship group on campus.
Yes. So I met him in college, in the fellowship. He was just like a regular guy in fellowship. And
is that not how it all starts?
I know, right? And so LOI, and then once in a while he sees me off to the hostel, and we're like, okay, I know this guy is my friend, nothing much. I had other friends. I had other friends keeping me company, like guys that were my friends. I'm like, well, he's just my friend, nothing. No strings attached, really.
Yeah. And then how many years down the line before he said those magic words that kind of... and people would think the magic words were positive words, but how many years down the line from friendship to him uttering the words that set the ball rolling or not rolling, as it were?
Like 2 years.
So 2 years.
I knew like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
as a casual
friend, 2 years, and then he walks up to you, and then he says what?
So in 2009, October precisely, he walked up to me and said, hello, God said you're my wife. I'm like, sorry, come again. What did you say? What exactly are you trying to say? He said, well, I heard from God, and he said you're my wife. I'm like, really? So in this day and age, a man can walk up to you and tell you God said, oh wow. I was like, please, I don't want to hear that. And I was like, okay, bye and bye, good night. And then I got to the hostel, I told my friend about it, and I was like, that, can you imagine? He said God said. How will he say God said? Like, seriously? he has that boldness to say God said. I was like, well, I'm going to frustrate him and show him that God didn't say because God hasn't told me anything. And so that continued, and then we graduated in that same year, and then he kept on calling. He kept on keeping in touch, even though he calls me and he tells me, I love you. I'm like, I have no feelings for you. In fact, the way I say it, I say I have zero feelings for you. And then it was the kind of guy, like, and the kind of patience he had, it continued for like a year. Like, he kept on sending me text messages, calling. Of course, then we didn't have so much of maybe social media, more like other than texting and calling, or maybe Facebook. We had Facebook then. I was like, he sends messages and says, oh, he's praying for me. I just want to tell you I love you. I'm like, how can you even love me? You can't love me. Like, there's no way there are other people.
You don't even know me that much.
You don't know me, so how can you tell me you love me other than the fact that you see me in the fellowship, and what do you know about me really? And then, because he wanted also to build a friendship, but at that point, I wasn't interested to let him into my life. I wasn't interested in letting him know anything extra about me other than what he already knew. So he would just call, and then I cut him off and say, okay, you know what? I'm not available for this call right now. Like, it was a whole lot of, like, if it was here, I would tell you, like, that I almost killed him. So for him, it was a whole lot of torture. And then on his own part, he was like, well, he didn't even think he wanted to get into a relationship yet, but I was just strong on his heart that this is his wife, and he didn't know better on how to present it. Like, looking back, he would say he should have become a friend first,
and then slowly let it go,
and then grow into it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think there was a prematurity of the message, especially if God hasn't revealed it to the other person. It's like something is coming up in the horizon, but how to just bite your tongue? I'm like, I can't say it, but I need to. I don't want to say it. Yeah.
Because a better approach would have been knowing me better, being my friend. Then from there we can grow into a relationship. But the moment he came with the God said card, I was like, no way, that's a red card. I'm not going to go further with this guy. And so he continued like that. I kept on struggling. I had other people that I felt, oh, maybe this one will be a better prospect. Like, maybe this guy is also cool. He's my friend. He's working. He's okay. He's settled. And maybe this guy, maybe that. But for some strange reasons, nothing was working. Like, I wasn't in any other relationship.
Oh, geez. So you've been jinxed.
Even though some other guys were asking me out, there was just no urge. Is that maybe I have a very terrible dream about not going into this one? I'm like, which kind of wala is this one? So it's like, why is it that the people we like
don't like
God
us?
Is not giving them to us? Why is it someone we don't even have any feeling for God is giving to us? So I kind of was confused. Over that time, I know that reading my Bible, one of the things that stuck to me was most man will proclaim his own goodness, Proverbs 26. But a faithful man who can find. And also a part that says, don't strive with a man without cause, like if he has done no harm. So I thought I was just being deliberately wicked or evil. To be honest, I was. Like, it wasn't. I'm not sure anyone would have gone through that. Like, a normal man would have said,
a long time ago.
You are a crazy woman. Like, there's no point. Like, God, even if God is saying, because one thing I never realized is, it's possible that God speaks to some people regarding relationship, but it may still not work because it still takes the two parties. If consistently, God won't come down to force me into a marriage.
And you will suffer for that consequence. I mean, even though there will be grace, but there will be consequences for that. But I know what you mean. It takes two. But it had to. God knew that He had to work on my own stubborn heart as well to be able to even get on with the relationship. So, I mean, different things were coming, and then I remember even one of my friends called me out of the blue and said, "Oh, you're struggling with God concerning something. What is it like? Just let God have His way." I'm like, "Oh God, what is this like?" So, the point where I knew I couldn't fight it again, and this was like already a year of saying no consistently. And then one day he called me, and to be honest, for that 1 year, when he calls me and he ends the call, he always says, "I love you." Until tomorrow,
Like for every day since we've been married, he says I love you up to 3 times. No joke. Like he would tell you, have I told you I love you today? It's like a mantra. Like, well, like, yeah, you told me you love me. It's okay. So he would tell me I love you, and I'm like, I don't have any feeling for you. Stop telling me that. So one day, that October, it was like, that was the next year now. It was like, I love you. And then I responded. I said, me too. I didn't say I love you too. But I said, me too. And then he paused. He said it felt like, what's going on here? What just happened? Did she just say she loves me? Or what is me too?
The other kind of me too, and then, just kidding.
Yeah, like... And then it was like, oh, something is going on. And then he said that day felt like, wow, God. So you just wanted me to be patient. And so eventually I was like, you know what? I can't say I'm madly in love with you right now, but I'm open that we start a relationship. Let's start dating. At least let's start with dating. And let's start learning about each other. At least now I'm open.
So you grew in love, like you would say. You didn't fall in love.
I tell people that for me, like different people have their own cases. So I wouldn't say my relationship story is not a template. It's the unique one. Everyone has his own journey. So I mean, everyone has where they face their own temptations, where they face their own trials. So for me, it wasn't a case of love at first sight. It was a case of I grew in love. Like I'm growing and I'm still growing. So it wasn't like, oh, you see a guy, he's tall, dark and handsome. Yeah, he's good looking. But the truth is that the attraction, I didn't even see it because...
I think the word that God said triggered you. Who will have thought that saying God said something? Like, it's from God. It shouldn't sound as a trigger. Mm-hmm. But I guess... as Christians, I know that even in fellowship, then we used to joke a lot. Like, I did God said. Like, anytime we hear God said, our eyes just start rolling like to the back of our head. Like, oh my God, who uses that line? You know, it's a trigger to most Christian sisters. But let's summarize this part, because I feel like there's some lessons here. A lot of us will miss out on our blessings because it's coming in packages that we didn't think. It's coming in packages that is not what we expect it to be. And I give credit to your husband, because if he wasn't a godly man and a patient man, he would have left you. And you were even very truthful that you were evil. Mm-hmm. You did some, not so kind things to him. He could have just left you, and God would have just, kept on blessing him. So for those that are probably in this situation, like looking back at the state of mind that you were in, can you give some just words of suggestions or even advice to maybe men or women? I think women this would be for the women, yeah. About not missing out on the blessings. Like, if you could go back and do things differently, what would you have done differently?
So if I could go back, do things differently, I wouldn't have put him under so much pressure for that 1 year. Because the truth is that, like you said, he could have left and that would have been whole. I would have at least given him the benefit of doubt and gone to pray without bias, because even when I was praying, I still had a bias of it can't be him now. How? And so I mean, I should have at least said, let's even get to know each other. Oh, you made this mistake of telling me this way, but you know what? I can be your friend. Let's build on the friendship. So I didn't do that, but instead I was like, don't call me again. I was all on his case. Like, he would call me, he would send me messages, but it's consistency. Oh my God, it's great.
Okay, let me play a bit of a devil's advocate here and permit me to do so. So, in addition to that triggering words of God said, you had said something that actually inspired this question of, was it like it wasn't like, like, how we have a list? It has to have this job, it has to make this amount of money. Did he, like, then as he was, like, did he meet those specifications? Or would you say in addition to things he was lacking according to your list, plus what he said, when he said God said, it just was like a double, combo?
So I wouldn't say, so for me, sometimes we have like a subtle list in our mind and we don't know we have it.
I mean, we have most of us have that mistake, even here, over here.
Because to be honest, even then, I had other people that were coming. So I always had guys coming. And then I always felt, oh, maybe this person is more matured, is already settled, is working, he can I would also start working soon. Of course, I'm not expecting a guy that will just take over all my life around responsibility, right? But I just felt, maybe a more matured person, not your mate in school, that you're graduating together, So, and then not someone that now says God said. I'm like, no, that's so. So for me, I think that was just it. Like, I had other options. And then I was thinking, maybe the other options will be more suitable, or maybe the person hasn't even come.
Yeah.
Even though the person was staring at me. And I remember even then when we were in school, I remember we had this friend that we used to pray together about marriage, about future. And, looking back, I'm like, God, you were answering those prayers. Just that even when the answer came, I didn't know it was the answer.
I just thank God for your life that I didn't miss out on that. So here's the lesson to those that might be on the other side of the spectrum. Maybe you're in your 20s. It's a fantastic time to be in your 20s. Your youth is like plump, guys are just hovering around you like, honey and bees on honey. But it's going to dry up real soon. And because, there's only so much your beauty is going to last for. And 20s is an age group where there's always going to be men for, those group, men in their 50s, men in their 60s. But I don't see women in their 60s or 70s being, clubbered around, for
That's
women,
true.
except if you're, super, super rich. So the lesson here is just, don't waste people's time and don't let anybody waste your time. It's good to have your list of, and I think we keep talking about it on the show, of things you want in a man or in a spouse or whatever. But make sure that list is not something that is, like have lists that are, things that are adjustable. Man, if you think about value system first, like a hierarchy. Do our values match? Whatever that value might be for you, you decide that. For me, is he really God-fearing? Because the man that fears God will always, put God first ahead of you. And that's a beautiful place to be. I don't mind being behind, God for a man that fears God. You know what I mean? I can be number 2 on that list or number 3. If it's, parents or whatever, number 2. So make sure your values align. And then every other thing like making money, X amount of money. I feel like those things can be worked on, but a lot of us, I don't know where the trap is from. I don't know if it's from the movies we've been watching as kids. We always have this, set rule about how our spouses should be. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't even meet half of those expectations for ourselves. So just want to put that out there because, I just thank God that you had, friends calling you and praying for you and, that God, worked on your heart because a whole year, that is torture. So now, as if that wasn't enough, your husband, I think about the 7 circles of hell, like, Dante style. After he went through all of that, then you were presented at the home front. Your mom particularly said she didn't want anyone from that tribe. Now, was this something she said so to be for context? And I don't know the beef between this. You are from
I'm from Ekiti.
And your husband is from Ijebu. So non-Yorubas, they all see all of us as Yorubas, Yes. But I did get, even among my Igbo friends, Anambra will beef, Imo people and all that. They have, but to us, we all look at them like Igbos. They all look the same. I mean, when I say the same, I mean, the language sounds the same. So, like your mom saying, I want Fedja, but like, we don't want anybody from. So, for context, for our non-Nigerian or, people that are not familiar with geography of Nigeria. So, Ijebu and Ekiti, these are like tribal groups within the southwestern part of Nigeria. And they fall under the Yoruba tribe, which, I'm part of the Yoruba tribe. And we have different ways of doing things. But sometimes there's this stereotype. Ijebus tend to be, people say that they are more diabolical and they're very stingy with money. That's like that's the running narrative. Now, of course, it's not always true. But anyway, there's people like, won't be Ijebu, like, yeah, stingy as an Ijebu man. Ekiti, I don't know, I think whatever Ekiti, like, they like women. They're stubborn, they like women, and they're very, they're very knowledgeable, like academic. They like academic pursuits. So your mom saying they don't want anyone from Ijebu. Was it something that was drummed in your ears as a kid, or all of a sudden you started hearing about this new rule?
So it's something I grew up hearing. It's something my mom always said that nobody, like, don't bring an Ijebu man. And we were all girls. We are all girls, 4 girls, right? So she, as she saw that we were growing into teenagehood, she started telling us, no Ijebu. So I think maybe that might have even added to will my parents even say yes to all this? Yeah, you said God said and all, right? But I was like, Ijebu, everything was just off. Ijebu, cross. No, my parents said no. You said God said no. The only thing that was right was the fact that I saw through all those process that this guy really loves God and that he has a heart for God. So his love for God wasn't just he was a church going person, and even like he has a relationship with God. He hears from God. He studies his Bible. He's a practical Christian. Like if he's wrong, he's able to say he's wrong. Like it's just the genuine love for God I saw. And I was like, this actually trumps every other thing I'm looking for. Even like I realized even when we started dating, like I said, we started like dating for some months. And then after about 6 months, I went to meet my mom and took my 2 left legs and told her, Mommy, I have something to say. Because I kind of knew she was the one ringing it on our ears and not my dad, even though my dad is like a more is the stricter one. But on this matter, my dad was liberal. My dad said, let them be like, let her go for whoever she wants to go for. But my mom kept on saying, not in this house, not in this house. Fejebu, we don't want Fejebu, it's not going to work, not in this house. So when I told my mom, the way she fled up, and she was like, don't bring him this way. She doesn't even want to know what he does or who he is or whatever. It's just the Ijebu. I've told you guys growing up, we don't want Ijebu. And then you want to test me, right? You now brought Ijebu. It's not going to work. So eventually we also because for me, it took over a year to get to this point where I am to even get convinced. So it's like, so you are like, God had touched my heart, will touch your own heart. So we went back and we prayed about it. And then one day my mom just said, you know what? She's going to pray about it. She's going to a pastor. And one thing again is I noticed that God speaks to people the way they understand.
Yeah.
So God knew that she would have a bias, even if she wanted to pray about it, and she knows that she has a pastor. She attends CAC, a Christ Apostolic Church back home, and then she knows, God knows that a pastor is is someone she respects as someone that hears from God. It's like, okay, pray about it. And then she prayed about it, and the pastor said, oh yeah, that God is in this relationship, don't stand in their way. And the moment my mom heard that, it was like a calm came upon the storm. The way she changed, the way she said, okay, let me see him. Can I even see him? Can I meet him now? And then I brought him home. And one thing I would appreciate God for, or I would say that God helped us with, or God helped me particularly with, was, or that I wasn't materialistic. Because even though we've gone out through all the ordeal of, okay, let's start dating, I was already working, he wasn't. And so you imagine bringing someone home that doesn't have a job, and the first thing your parents is asking, what does he do? Work? Yeah. He's still job hunting, and probably he's just still freelancing and learning stuff on his own while he's looking for a job. Nothing fantastic. So we dated for about 3 years, thereabout. We got married 3 years after, but even up to when he came for the introduction, which was 6 months to the wedding, it still wasn't working. And his parents are my parents. His parents are quite also prayerful, and then they saw, the moment his mom heard about me, she said she had peace. That was the one, so his parents were also in support of him dating me. And then I met them. They were happy. I finally went to his house, of course, and then they were happy to see me. And then I just felt at peace with his family, with his whole setting. And then they were happy to support the marriage. So imagine getting married to someone who wasn't working at the time, and then you have a wedding date. You have a wedding ivy, and then you're like, okay, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is that I'm following you in this. And God helped me during all those waiting process to read books. One of the books I read was No More 2 by Billy Akoni. And that book, one of those things I picked out of that book is the fact that when you're in marriage, you're one. God sees you as one, even in your finances, even up to like your living. So even though I was working in a big four, I was earning more than him. Of course, it wasn't even earning for the major part of it. Before we got married, he started working about 2 months to the wedding. And then it was still like I was still earning more, but there was nothing, you could not tell. So I was just still living my life. We were still all like spending money together. At that point, we didn't even have a joint account, but we always had like projects. Oh, we want to do this. Okay, this is the money. We put the money in here. So it was just, we're just living our life like we are one. Like I didn't see myself as, oh, you're superior because you're working, you're a big girl. I mean, God put me in the position where I'm in. It wasn't like it's like I tell myself that it's grace I found. Like, yeah, the fact that you went to a college and you didn't even like, at that time, it wasn't like even a proper university, and you were still able to find yourself in.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so at the end of the day, when we were going to get married, like I said, there was nothing much on ground. And then we managed to rent a house in Lekki. Now, 1 year Lekki.
Yeah, for a non-Nigerian and geography of Nigerian listeners, Lekki is, again, it's one of those, for the most part, it's waterlogged. I'll say that. But they have some prime properties there, beachfront, ocean view, It's usually highly priced. Everybody wants to live in Lekki, except when it rains.
Yeah. So in that 2014, when we got married, we finally got an apartment. We got an apartment. Some maybe 2 weeks to the wedding, and the apartment was one of a kind. Like, it was based on our budget at that point, and when you get an apartment for 150,000 naira,
that's like $300 per month.
Yeah, not per month.
Was it per year?
For the year.
Oh my God! Sorry.
Yeah, it was for the year.
Wow.
So it was just like you're paying like 12K. The house was a mess, but we knew that. So at some point we were like, oh, should we get married and then stay apart? No, we can't stay apart. We're married, we'll stay together. And so we got married and stayed in the house. The house was close to one Alpha Beach, one of the most unkept beaches in Lekki. And then we were so close that we could hear the wave of the sea.
That's like prime property right there. Beach front.
And then the water overflows.
Oh, jeez.
And then when the water overflows, it gets to the compound, and then you have to, like, we had our episode of falling into the water on the bike. Like, when the water we didn't have a car then, but even people that had a car could not come in. So it was for us, that first 1 year of marriage was like we were learning about each other. So it was like God taking me through. Most people would dream of, oh, my honeymoon, I want to go to Barbados, or I want to go to Dubai. I have this, I have that. So for me, I think we had our honeymoon in the chalet in the redemption camp. We're just there. We enjoyed it though, but we enjoyed each stage of our life. I will put it that way. We learned to live and enjoy each other for those periods. We'll take each other on a walk, go on the beach, play, come back. I mean, there was no kid then, so so life was easy. But I mean, then I would have my spare shoe in my bag. I would go to work and then freshen up, because you would have to walk on the beach shore for a long time before you get out, especially when it's flooded and you don't want to get into the flood. You don't want the bike to throw you into the water, so you have to take a long walk. So I would have a special for my long walk. I get to work, look normal, go freshen up, do my work, come back again. We get to the bus stop, walk again through the shore.
So
you come back home.
All the, people say, oh, I like to walk on the, people say ideal vacation, lonely walks on the beach. You had all of that, on really this was a different experience.
It was a different experience. It was like we were suffering, but we were smiling. We were suffering, but we were smiling.
But you had each other, and your heart was one.
Yeah.
What's the point of living in mansions when you don't have like that peace and union of hearts? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. So the fact that we loved each other
Yeah.
genuinely, and then we were learning about each other, we were growing. So it was just, so we didn't see it as anything. We just tried to maximize our time there. So when we spent about a year, we were able to rent a proper apartment and the same like a different area. A 2-bedroom this time, and then we're like, okay, now
Life has, yeah.
we get now our family and friends can come and visit
Yeah.
because the other half it wasn't where anyone could come
Yeah.
to. There was even no chair. It was just a bed. We had just a bed on the floor. We had a plastic chair and a table, and then we had our clothes hung on the wall. There was no living room. It was just the bed. So you can imagine just the bed, a shoe rack. I can still imagine the room right now. A shoe rack, just the bed. And then we had our clothes rack up there. And then we had a table. We had a tiny kitchen where we had a camp gas. We had a tiny washroom where the water was not usable. It was brown and stinky. So we had to go fetch water every day outside with a keg. He would go fetch it and wait for him. And then, so we did that for a year. And so there was no family friend visiting.
No parents, no siblings. Let's dissect that a little bit, because I can imagine that any parent that would walk in and see, like your mom especially, you my daughter in this place, no, you know.
Oh,
but I like how you excluded, you know. I think sometimes in marriage that exclusivity is needed, especially when you need to make meaning of what you have, because not everybody will understand it. And the heart of a mother, your mom will just see that this is suffering, like, you know, and it's not gonna be wrong for her to think that way. But you protected yourselves, because you said nobody visited you. Even your siblings couldn't come. His siblings couldn't come. They probably had an idea what you guys were going through, but nobody really could see the picture.
They had an idea. They had an idea because they had an idea, just that they didn't get to visit. And then when we were moving houses, I remember his younger brother came around. He helped us move, and was like, "This is where you people are."
They should have come on a rainy day when there was flood and all that.
You know, he was shocked. Like, he was shocked. That flood, I remember a day before the wedding, I was trying to pack my things from Ojolegba. I was staying in Ojolegba at the time, and I was trying to pack my things, and then I could not go. Like, the flood wasn't the flood that Igbo F1 then. The flood wasn't flood that you say. The taxi guy said, sorry, I can't go. So I had to pack my things back to where I was coming from. We had the wedding, did the honeymoon, then we went back to pack my things into the flooded house.
Wow. I think the lesson here is that, man.
And then I was still smiling at the wedding.
Of course you have to look all good together. You worked in should we mention where you used to work? Or maybe you worked with Price Waterhouse and Cooper, like PwC. That's a high, one of the top brands to work for in Nigeria. Like even mentioning, people know that. So you're going to work every day, looking all, but they don't know your situation. That you can't even have Saturday lunches with friends at home or potluck dinners, on the weekends. And I think it also shows the character of your character and your husband's character as well. It's the true strength of your character. In how, this is what is happening for us right now. We know it's not a permanent situation, but we'll just keep going. Yeah. And I think the lesson here for those that might be listening is that, you go through rough times in your marriage. Perhaps it's the first year of your marriage, or, the second part of your marriage, or maybe years down the line. The thing is that make sure you're united, and always remember that it's not going to be permanent. No matter how dark, no matter how difficult it is, it's not going to be permanent. We've had our own moments. Admittedly, it wasn't like flooded houses. Myself and my husband, we've had our moments where it felt like there was no end in sight. But don't add to your frustration by being apart and, driving that wedge. Come together and, hold yourselves together, and you'll overcome it. I believe that strongly. I think there's a grace in marriage where God honors that unity of hearts. Yes, there's a way that. Now let's talk a little bit. Let's go to the third wave of it. So you guys, you started making your way up. This was someone that didn't have a job before the wedding, and you were earning a lot more. And then an opportunity came for you guys to move to Canada, and then you moved to Canada. And tell us a little bit about what life has been like. And you're definitely doing a lot better now. Apart from the glow I see in your face, I can, the surroundings. So tell us a little bit about that, and also the lessons learned about patience and just sticking to things.
So yeah, I would say that being on the same page is actually important, because after we moved to the other house, and then I think it was his uncle that encouraged us. His uncle is in Canada and asked us, "Oh, do you want to move to Canada?" And then we started the process. And then we started taking the exams. That's another story. Like, I did the English test like 4 times.
My cousin did it 9 times, so don't worry. You're behind. Yeah, but she's in Canada and she's having a good time. Sup, Shola?
You see, so the persistence was there at some point. He was like, you know what? I'm done. Maybe God doesn't want us to go, but I just said, you know what? Let's give it the last shot. And then I did, and that was it. And then I got the score I needed for the English test, because, of course, the English test was then the major factor. And then we saved up. We got a better job just even before we left. And then we're able to save up even more. I was promoted at work. When I left, I was a manager, and then we're able to have more money to save. And then we got here. He was also able to build on his career. He started first as a teacher. He moved on to robotics because he loves robotics. And then eventually, before he left Nigeria, he got a role as a UI developer, a UX designer, graphic designer. And then when we got into Canada, he was like, because he did computer science, right? His background is computer science education and a computer science diploma. And then he was like, maybe you should move into software development. And then he switched. And it's been a good switch, because we've just been 3.5 years in Canada, and it's doing well. It's working. So the times I've switched to when I used to earn more, now he earns more. I'm an accountant. I'm a chartered accountant, but IT guys are still up there. Yeah. So God has helped us to grow from a place where we had nothing. Where it said even when he came for the introduction, he had just 1,000 naira in his account.
Wow, that's $2.
Yeah, and so even when we got married, he was just working 2 months, so it wasn't like he had any much savings. But we were able to build things together as one. Pay the house rent, even when we moved to a bigger house that was about $1 million at that time. But we were still able to weather and move through all those things. And so we've grown from that position where we're living in a room, no parlor, nothing, to a place where we now have a mortgage running. We now have our own space. We now have 2 kids, and we're still growing. We are growing, but the truth is that we are getting better. And looking back, I'm grateful to God that He didn't give up on me. That even God didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
Because I could have missed it. I was close to missing it. If I had insisted and said no, I'm sure God would have said, you know what, just forget about this person and just I'll give you someone else. But I'm grateful that eventually I was able to say yes, because looking back, it feels like we complement each other in certain ways, and he's a very calculated person, maybe because he's a programmer, but yeah.
I expect you to be calculated as an accountant, but that's okay.
I'm not. I'm a. Let's do it fast. So if you will, I say go getter. I'm a kind of person that you set me in motion. You tell me, should we order for this, or maybe we should buy this and that. As you're saying, maybe I've done it. I'm saying, okay, sweetie, I've done it. Oh, but we've not said okay, go. So the moment you're still saying maybe, I'm on it. I'm on it. I'm the kind of person that I'm on it. But he is always
let's decide. Let's pros and cons. I see.
What are we doing? And then spiritually, I would say is more of the covering. He's a very prayerful person, helping me to grow too. Even when sometimes I can be lazy, but I'm happy that we have that complement, that we complement each other. And like I said, the major characteristics of the good part or trait I like and I see in him is the fact that
God.
he has a genuine love for God, like genuine love for God. And so even when he does something wrong, he's not perfect, I'm not perfect, but even when he does something wrong, he always comes back to say sorry. Like he feels like God just tells him, the day would not pass before he comes to say, see, I shouldn't have said what I said. Even when you can't even remember what got you upset. I'm the kind of person that I can get upset, but I talk about it immediately. And the truth is that tomorrow I may not remember why I got upset. That's like move on person. But he is the kind of person that takes a step back and says, oh, how did my day go today? What didn't I do right today? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have spoken to my colleague this way. Oh, maybe I should apologize to this person. Oh, maybe I spoke to my wife.
He's introspective.
So he is that kind of person. And so I feel like it's just a compliment. And even in child training the kids, we compliment each other so much. And then I'm happy with the journey so far. The 7 years has been good. Growth. I can see growth. I can see God's grace, and I can see that we're loving each other more. We are growing in love. Basically, yeah.
So many lessons from your story. Even though we started this conversation thinking that we're going to talk about your mom's objection, it's not even the main story, right? Yeah, we do see the implication of parents, sometimes biasing their bias affecting the future of their kids. But it wasn't going to stop you anyways, regardless. I think you'll have to keep pushing on. But I think the beauty of it here is just, the way God loves us. Even when we almost miss it, he still doesn't do. And I think God really loves you, B. And I think another part here is cutting your coat according to your size. You guys have been through the lean years. You know that even despite working in a hot place like, PwC, you could have, there's a certain lifestyle that I demanded. I used to work with Chevron and, when my husband and I used to live somewhere in Surulere, it wasn't like the perfect, I couldn't bring a lot of my colleagues there. But when you get to a workplace, you're in a different space. Like, there's a way you just, even the things your colleagues are buying, like the shoes, the purses, some of them are even going on vacation to like the UK. You haven't even left your Oshodi yet. But you focused on just, this is what is working for us, and I'm not going to let that be affected. So I think the thing here is just, contentment, contentment with what you have. Not saying you should be content and stay there, but know that this doesn't define you, and enjoy it, and I like what you said, like you use that first year to learn about each other. Imagine if you had kids right away, probably, you'll have just been a lot. Yeah, you'll have been a lot. But this is just what works for you. Some people, maybe just having kids really helped their marriage, but you took that opportunity and learned from it. And I'm glad that you both are in a space where you're still growing. And I think what you said about, him complimenting you and you complimenting him, I think that's the beauty of marriage. Our spouses should be like a peer reviewer, like someone that spots you, that checks you before you go out there and go and mess up. It's like, no, I love you so much for you to, not be good in this particular area. And it's also listening to what they're saying and also speaking the truth in love. And so I just want to say this, this has really been a good time talking to you. I don't know if you had any final words, especially for parents who might still be holding on to, no, you can't marry this person just because of I won't call it a silly excuse, because for your mom to have been drumming that into your ears, as a little child, and the first person you bring home is from that. I bet if you brought her to the show, she probably would talk about just, her reason for that. But let's just call it a reason and not call it a silly excuse, because I believe that it came from a place. For parents that might be holding on to that, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, so I would say that as much as possible, we should try to eliminate unconscious bias, especially regarding our children, even when it comes to their choice of school, their choice of course to study, or even relationship. Because it's easy for parents to sometimes we want to live our dream life through our kids. Like, you think, my child should marry from this tribe and not this tribe, or you feel, my child should be studying engineering and not say he wants to be a pharmacist or something, sometimes parents can be we can be myopic because we're not seeing the big picture. So I think what's important is to at least let's pray about it first. Put your bias beside you and then pray about it, and then let your child let your child navigate. Like let your child be free enough to say, this is who I want to marry, this is who I want to date. I mean, eventually my parents, my mom, well, my dad always never had an issue, but my parents, I would say my parents supported me because, I mean, my parents knew that this guy wasn't working. Even when we came for introduction, they knew that he just started working, even when we were going to get married. But my mom was still supportive. My dad was still supportive. They were still praying for us. They did say, oh, but you're working in this place. How can you don't match? This way some parents will say, oh, you can't marry a low-level person, kind of like. It wasn't even like we had we were not super rich. Like, if you get what I mean. It wasn't like we're from the most wealthy family, but I mean, eventually things worked out. His parents supported, my siblings supported. And so that having your family support, even though we're going through all this, I mean, I was still sending pictures to my family, right? Sending picture of, oh, see our room, see our one room, so I may not be able to send it to my friends or post it on status or whatever it is, but I mean, my sisters, they understood and they supported my decision. And that went a long way. The support of family is important because it helps go through whatever it is they were going through.
I mean, you've hit critical points in your message. I think the first one definitely is, our biases, even both the conscious and the unconscious one. And I think sometimes we, in our quest to say we want the best for our kids, we don't see God's face. I feel like as parents, our job is just to be caretakers. We don't own the child. We're supposed to hear from God. How can I? Because God sees everything. We only see our view is just very limited. We don't see in 3 dimensions, right? We can think about the past, but you don't know everything about the past. The future, nobody knows. So from that limited view, that fear of what does God want for this child to be, and how can I position myself to be as a support so that God's will be done? And I think that's just the lesson here. And I know also the last piece about family. I know in most Western worlds, most people don't even look at their parents as someone that they have to talk to about their spouses. You even hear, Mom, I'm getting married next week, and that's it, But in our culture, it's different. Family is everything, and I'm glad that you both had that, because I bet that sometimes that you need to lean on the support of your family. And imagine if you had just excommunicated them, how dare you say I cannot marry this person? I'm gonna walk away, and all that. But I think everything just worked out good for you, and I'm really, really happy to hear that. And I wish you guys all the best. And I know it gets better, and I know that whatever life throws your way, you've built enough I want to say muscles, physically and spiritually, from all of your walks on the beach. And so if you go back down, would you still want to take a walk on the beach, or is it still a trigger to you?
Well, it reminds me. I went to the beach last week. Actually, it reminds me of where we are coming from.
Your kids have no idea. These kids will have no idea. They will have no idea.
By the beach, so it's not like I'm go to the beach.
And I'll end this by saying, God said to say thank you for coming. For sharing your stories. And all right, guys, this was it. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. If you love this episode, don't forget to check out more episodes. And I remain your host, Sibyl. Bye for now. Yay. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sibyl podcast. Well, guess what? There's plenty more where that came from. So visit our website at www.mosibyl.com. That is www.mosibyl.com, where you can find hours of other binge-worthy episodes just like this one. And while you're at it, please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or Podbean, as it encourages other awesome people like you to listen to the podcast as well. We are now officially on Podbean. It has an app. You can catch up on missed episodes and also get a notification when we have new episodes. Do you have a question for our guest, feedback on the episode, or a suggestion for a future guest? Then please get in touch with us by sending us an email at talktomo@mosibyl.com or connect with us via Instagram at the More Sibyl Podcast. Cannot wait to hear from you, and thank you so much for always listening.